Hey there, folks. Hold on a second here. I gotta get the lights on here for a second. See how much longer I have. See if anybody tuned in yet. Hey there, folks. PTPOP here. It's me and a pine cone. And it's a balmy night here in Cleveland. It was a high of something like 97 today or 94 with a humidity of like 60%. The heat index said it was about 100, I think, 101. So it was a lot like Arizona today. But I like it. I'm still glad to be here. When I was a kid, you know, my mom would try to warn me about people I was hanging out with. She warned me about a couple of my friends, high school buddies, that she said were no good. She said they were just users. And of course, you know, I'm 14, 15, 16 years old, and I didn't want to listen to her. I thought she was just being a bitch, and, you know, we'd have these huge arguments about my wonderful friends. She said, I'm telling you, they're users. They're just using you. And I'm not going to go into the friends and what they did, but as I look back on it, my mom was right. You know, my mom was older than me, obviously. She was like 30 years older than me. And she had seen a few things in her life. And I never gave her credit when I was younger for the things that she had seen in life, and she had some experience in crazy because she dealt with a lot of crazy people in her own family and with my father and stuff, and she had been around the block a few times. I don't mean in that kind of way. I mean, you know, she'd seen a few things. And I would never listen to her. I'd always say, well, you know, what do you know, you old bitch? You know, I don't know if I ever called her that. I'm sure I never called her that. But I'm finding something out as you get older and your experience with people and you get more experience with people, you're able to spot crazy from a mile away. You're able to spot things in people's personalities and their traits and their characteristics where you can tell that they're really messed up in the head, that they've seen some horrific things in their lives and they've never recovered from it, or they're just biologically a few bricks short of a stack. And I've noticed this a lot now that I get older. I can kind of, I'm not real good at it doing it right up front. Like I don't notice it right away. Like my wife is really good at sizing people up pretty quickly, and she's usually bullseye on people, which makes me wonder why she married me. And my father-in-law was the same way. You know, I had a friend, I was telling him about a friend of mine, about some things that they were going through in their divorce and all this stuff, and he said, boy, that person sounds like they're off the rocker, Pete. I'd stay away from them. And you know, that too, his influence on my life helped me a lot too, because he spent 30 years working in the IRS and he had to size people up a lot. He would chase people down for tax evasion. One of the most famous people he chased down was Joe Walsh. He had to go down to Blossom Music Center with armed marshals to get Joe Walsh to pay up back taxes. Otherwise, he threatened to shut the show down and take all his equipment from him. But my father-in-law spent years trying to size people up, and he became very tuned with people that were unstable and crazy. And I found the same thing. I've now worked for the IRS, of course, but when you're getting older, you're introduced to lots of different people of all walks of life who've experienced all kinds of things. And one thing I've discovered is that almost everybody I run into has had some type of trauma in their life, whether it was as a kid or as an adult, and it affects them, it affects their choices, it affects their behavior, it affects the way they react to things. And what I find mostly is you can tell pretty quickly when you meet someone who's been abused as a kid that it's affected them as an adult. Now, I don't always know that they've been abused as a kid, but there's certain things you can pretty much count on that somebody has been abused. And my lights have gone out on me. So I'm in the dark. Let me turn my lights back on. There we go. You can still hear me because I've got a wireless mic on. And so what happens is you get this radar, you get this intuition in the pit of your stomach, this feeling that tells you that something's not quite right. You can sit back and look at people and thank God I don't have children, because like when my mother saw me hanging out with these guys, she knew they were up to no good. I didn't see it. I really didn't see it till I was well into my 30s. Had no clue. Was clueless. There's some lightning. If I get struck by lightning, it's my mom coming back to get me. But I see it a lot now as a grown man. I see you can pretty much size people up pretty fast. Not passing judgment on them. You're not just making an off the cuff, like knee-jerk reaction, but you can kind of tell the way people react to things, especially as you start to talk to them. There's a lot of people that you can tell that you get as you get to know them, if you get to know them well, if they were abused as a kid sexually, because they're very hyperly focused on sex. They're hyper focused on the activity of sex or pursuing it. They're addicted to it. They've seen a lot of trauma in their life, probably as a kid. I don't recall myself being abused, but I know I was exposed to adult material at a very young age, at the age of 7. Nobody showed it to me. I happened to find it in the apartment we lived in. And it was traumatic, because I had never seen a naked lady before. Unless you want to account for the time I saw my mother naked on the bathroom floor in a pool of blood. For some reason, I found her in there, unconscious in the bathroom. But we won't go there tonight. And it affects you. And I think what is really sad is that there's adults out there who either consciously decide to have children, or they get half lit and they decide to get horned up and they decide to make love, to put it politely, without any thought about the repercussions of having unprotected lovemaking, that a child will come from that. And many of these people, like my parents, I'm pretty sure came out of a bottle, so to speak. I'm pretty sure my mom and dad probably got lit on her birthday around February 22nd of probably 65. I think I was supposed to be born in November. I was born in October. But there's two people that they weren't planning on me. I don't know what happened. Don't even know if Mom remembers the night. But I'm pretty sure, if anything, Dad was drunk. But a lot of people do this. A lot of people do it because sex is supposed to be fun and it feels good and it's spontaneous, and nobody thinks about that they could potentially create another human life, and into that life they're bringing a child into a hurricane, and nobody thinks about the repercussions of the life that these children are being born into. They don't care. They just had a good time. They had a couple of drinks. They got their rocks off and they made a baby. Oh well, that's just a side effect we'll deal with later, right? And a lot of people like myself are born into situations that are volatile and unhealthy and abusive. And you meet a lot of these people later in life and you hear their stories. And you find that like almost everybody had a weird thing going on at home with their parents. Something weird was going on. And it's really sad because nobody takes responsibility for their actions. They look at their children as a burden. because, you know, they're sick. They're sick individuals who are hedonistic and self-indulgent and just living for the moment and just running around mounting one another like wild animals. And I think wild animals take better care of their young than humans do in many ways. Humans are giving birth to just broken. They're creating, essentially, they're creating damaged and broken people, little humans that they abuse and they neglect throughout the first 18 years of their life, and then they kick them off into the real world, and the kids are out there going, okay, now what do I do? Whether they're on a college campus or working at the Five and Dime or working down at a factory, there's a lot of broken people out there because of the dysfunctional parents that they had or have. And my lights are going out again. Let's just work with this one here. Nope, don't you dare go out. You stay on there, Mr. Light. I got the split lighting here. And, you know, there's nothing you can do. You can't talk sense into somebody who's got a bottle in one hand and a woman in the other hand, and they just want to make love and they don't care if they make babies. We live in a society where children are disposable, where families are disposable, where friends are disposable, because everybody's pursuing the American dream. Everybody's pursuing some lust-filled, magnificent dream of rock and roll, movie stardom. They want their 15 minutes of fame. And in the meantime, they're creating children, creating other human beings. They're going off in the world and wreaking havoc. There's lots of broken people out there. Lots and lots of broken people. And I claim it's from parents that should have never had children. And I've mentioned this before, I think you should have a license to have children. You should have to have some approval from some type of group that says, yeah, you're mentally competent, go ahead and have kids. There's just too many people out there that are having babies that don't know what to do with them once they're there. They leave them basically on their own, fend for themselves, and they're creating broken, disturbed people. But I've gained this ability to size people up. Not that I'm like a fortune teller. I can't read people's minds, but you can kind of tell by the way people react to stuff that they've got some deep-seated issues. Some would say a few screws loose. And I'm one of them. I've got some issues of my own that I've been ironing out for at least the last 38 years since my father was murdered. And I see a lot of people don't ever confront their demons. They never confront them. They never do anything with them. They turn to the bottle like their dad did, or they turn to the drugs, or they turn to rock and roll or sex or whatever, just to medicate themselves to hide from the bad memories. And it's hard. It's hard to confront the bad memories. Now, my bad memories are nothing compared to what some of the people I've met in life have been through. Some of the abuse some of the people I know have been through. Far worse than what I've been through. And I went through a lot. And I'm not here to harp on my parents or to harp on what I went through, but you gain this sense, this like sixth sense, where you can go, oh, this person's really not doing too good. Maybe I shouldn't hang around with them. And then there's people I know who have been through a lot that are genuinely good people. They would be there for you no matter what. They may have an eccentric lifestyle, or they may have certain tastes that you may not approve of, but you know that a lot of what they are doing in the current day is based upon what they experienced as children. And I have a hard time with people who come into my life with their baggage, and I've just met them and I have no idea how to handle the baggage, because you meet somebody, they don't even know they got baggage. but then they toss it in your lap, kind of, and you're like, shit, this person's all fucked up. I don't know if I want to hang out with this person anymore. Because it's hard. It's really hard. It's people who know me will contest that I'm not an easy person to be around. I'm very I don't know what you'd call it, but I'm very distrustful. I'm very distrustful. I don't trust people very well. And the minute I feel somebody's broken that trust in me, I just hit the road. I just cut ties with people. My rearview mirror is littered with broken relationships. And I don't mean female romantic relationships, just guy friends and female relationships, just littered. Just burned a ton of bridges with people that I felt had betrayed me. A lot of that comes from my upbringing. And my mother's in my head right now. She's dead, but she's in my head saying, oh, don't you sit there and blame that shit on me. Well, I am Mom, and I will, because maybe not her. But yeah, she betrayed me. She betrayed all myself and my siblings, as my father did. They both betrayed us. And that hurts you. It hurts you mentally and emotionally. But I have a hard time dealing with it now. When I start to see, here, let's just walk over by the light. Go to the light, Carrie Ann, go to the light. Let's go to the light, over where the mosquitoes are. And when you start to see this stuff, when you start to see it in somebody else's life, you're like, okay, I don't have the energy right now to counsel you or to hold your hand. My wife and I have our plates full. I don't have the time or the patience to try to figure out how to help somebody through their issues. And it gets to be very trying. It gets to be very taxing, to a point where you're like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm sorry, dude. And let me get a chair and I'll sit here behind the light. But I guess my point is you begin to become very in tune to these issues with other people because you've dealt with it on your own level and you see it in yourself, and you can see the insecurities in yourself come out in other people. And it's really difficult to watch because most people are not even aware. You can tell they have no clue. You can tell they have never even begun to approach what's happened to them in their childhood. And you can tell just by talking to somebody for a few minutes, if they disclose a lot of personal stuff to you, you can tell pretty quickly that something bad happened in their childhood, whatever that happened to be. And most people don't want to talk about it. They just they do what I did for years. Like, we always thought, like, if Dad was just gone, that life would be better. So Mom and Dad got divorced. It was better for me, but my mom had to go to work in a factory. And I'll never forget the minute they were divorced, I got this became very bitter and cynical. This was 8th grade. I'm like, I was walking around just scoffing. I'm not saying it was a bad thing they got divorced, but there was this stigma back then with parents being divorced because everyone likes to portray their lives as being perfect. So all the kids you're with in school, they're all like, oh yeah, we're going on vacation with Mom and Dad. We're going to the Bahamas, or we're going to Disney World or something like that, Meanwhile, Mom and I are just at home watching the ball game on TV in the summertime, and you feel like you're missing out on something, or maybe you're dirty, or you're not as good as the other families. There's a lot of stigmas and a lot of things that come with coming from an alcoholic family that stay with you your whole life. It doesn't go away. It stains you, kind of like when you take a virgin piece of wood and you stain it with wood stain. The only way to get rid of that deep stain is to sand it and sand it and sand it down to, you gotta sand like, I don't know how far down you have to go on a piece of pine to get rid of some stain, but it takes a while. It takes a lot of work, a lot of elbow grease. And if you don't ever get rid of that stain, it just stays there. And it affects everything. It affects your relationships, it affects your outlook on life, it affects your jobs, It affects everything. And now at the ripe old age of almost 60, I'm seeing this in other people. I'm seeing really strange things in other people. You see them right away. Your radar goes off. All the red flags go off, and you're just like, shit, this person's got some issues. And I don't know if I want to deal with it. And I don't know if it's because when you get older, if like those issues kind of bubble to the surface because they've been held underwater. It's kind of like if you don't deal with these issues, it's like holding a beach ball underwater. And if you ever go to the ocean or the lake and you try to hold a beach ball underwater, you can only hold it down there so long before it pops back up. Yeah, a storm is coming. There's a really weird, it's been really hot here. There's a heat dome over Cleveland, and then there's a storms coming in from the northwest off the lake and off of northwestern Ohio out of Toledo. So I probably shouldn't be out here. If I get struck by lightning, man, then I'll go viral, right? Hey, Pete got struck by lightning. I was gonna pass that around to my friends. And I put the microphone on the wrong side, didn't I? I sure did. Let's fix that up. Probably doesn't make any difference. Audio is the bane of my existence. But it's really hard. It's really hard because you start to see that a lot of adults are really messed up. Like really screwed up. More lightning behind me. A lot of us are. And a lot of people I have never set foot in a counselor's office. And I can't say that. I've been in counseling since 1987, off and on. I can't say it's ever really helped me. I can't. I can't say I've ever gotten one nugget of anything from it other than there goes another $150 or whatever it costs to go to counseling these days. So have you, any of you older, do you see the thousand? Oh no, don't you dare go out on me again. That's why I sat near you. Come on. The light's tired of hearing me talk. So have any of you older folks ever run into this where you're like, and then sometimes, when you're older and you feel sorry for people, you kind of want to help them, but there's nothing you can do. I mean, what are you going to do? And you look back over your life and you look back over the people that had certain idiosyncrasies, you're like, oh yeah, that person, that person, that person. And the people my mother pointed out to me, they're just totally obviously there's red flags all over a couple of the guys he used to hang out with. Horrible things must have gone on in their lives. I know one guy, he had a bad life. But there was another guy who, from the outside, looked like he had a good life. His parents were married, and his dad worked, his mom worked. They had a beautiful home on like an acre of land, and he was just as screwy, if not screwier, than the rest of us. But these guys make you laugh. You have a good time with them, and because they make you laugh and stuff like that, you're like, oh, I'm just gonna let it go. I don't really see it. But when you're young, you don't see it. You don't have the ability to see it, or you're too dumb, or you're too blind to it. You just want to have fun. They're just my friends, And as you grow, you learn, you become wiser. And it's sad because I've met some new people, these aren't people I've known, but new people I've met recently. It's more than apparent that they have some really serious issues. And it's sad. You see grown people my age living their lives in fear and insecurities, their lives ruled by insecurities and by fear because something that must have happened in their past. It has to be deep-seated, and I guess I'm an armchair. Yeah, no one knows what's happening behind closed doors. S. Jones, nobody knows. You just don't know what's going on in somebody's house, especially when you're a kid. I've got a friend where I used to go to their house, and this is back in high school, and this guy had a VCR. Nobody had a VCR yet, but his parents had like 2 VCRs. And one day he pulls out these VHS tapes of pornos. Really, really disgusting pornos. I won't say what was on it. It was really bad. Like stuff I've never seen before or since and never want to see again. And it was some really dark shit. And he's like, hey, look at this stuff. I'm thinking, where did he get this stuff? I'm like 17 or something. Like, where did he get this stuff? And I don't know. I always wondered if he was abused as a kid. I wonder if his dad abused him or something, because he was really, really hypersexual, my friend. He was really hypersexual, and he was always bragging about these sexual escapades he would go on in high school with different people. He even had intercourse with one of his cousins, a girl. I'm like, why would you have sex with your cousin? Like, what the fuck, dude? But now I think about it, look back on it, he must have experienced something as a young kid that put him in that mindset. My neighbors are outside now, so I better tone it down a bit. They're nice, but I don't know if anybody's run across this as you get older. Your radar kind of is more sensitive to weirdness in other people. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not. I'm one of them. But yeah. Well, I better cut this short here. But let me know what you think. Or let me go around the corner maybe. Go around the corner. See if this other, there we go. And I just wanted to talk about it tonight. See, and I don't really know what my siblings experienced. I have no clue. I had a brother that grew up with me until I was about 8 or 9, and he went to college. But my other siblings were gone from the house between 1968 and 1970. They went off to college. And I know my sister, and I talk about it every now and then, but it's, it's not something we go to a deep detail about. But I'm telling you, if I had kids today and I had like a girl or a girl that was about to, even a guy, if I had a boy or a girl, and they're at dating age, if I had a girl especially, I'd answer the door with a shotgun. I'd have my 9mm, my holster in my hip, and say, hey, how's it going tonight? I'd make sure he saw it. I wouldn't threaten him with it, because they'd go to jail for that. But you guys that have kids these days, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you let your girl leave the house with a guy or another girl or whatever their preferences are these days. And you sit there and probably hope and pray they get home in one piece, right? I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. It would drive me crazy. And that's because I'm a guy, and when I was that age, there was one thing on my mind. There was one thing on all my friends' minds. And we all know what that is. And as a grown man, that you don't want that to happen, especially if you've got a girl, because if she gets pregnant at a young age, it ruins her life. It ruins a young lady's life. Even to this day, there were a couple girls in my high school that got pregnant. And they were kind of ostracized, and I don't know. I think one dropped out and came back to school for a while. It was sad. It wasn't sad back then. I look back on it now, and they both, they've gone on with their lives and had lives and stuff. I better get inside. The lighting is getting kind of freaking weird out here. So, all right, guys. I hope you have a great night. Let me know what your experience with this is like in the comments. Have a good night. Bye.